Hello, my name is Daniel. Welcome to the Crosslink channel. This is my review of the Ortur Laser Master 15 watt, an affordable laser engraver and laser cutter, and we're starting right now. Over the last couple of weeks I was able to test the Ortur Laser Master 15 watt, which was sent to me for free by GearBest. So thanks very much to GearBest for sponsoring this device. As usual, I'm doing this review completely unbiased. I'm not getting paid for it, so this is going to be as honest as every time, and also all the links to the machine to purchase it, additional software and manuals are in the description of this video. I'd like to ask you one thing up front. Please, after watching this video, leave a comment what material tests you would be interested in besides the ones I did for this video. I'm happy to do a follow-up video with more tests and different materials for engraving and cutting, and also all of my settings for different materials that I discovered so far are available on my website for my patrons. The link is in the description of this video. I want to say a few things about safety up front. Laser machines are dangerous. You can hurt yourself if this is used in a wrong way. Always run these devices in a safe place, especially away from children and pets. Wear your protective goggles all the time when you use the machine to protect your eyes. Don't leave it running unattended, and also make sure the surface where you're putting it on is fireproof, for example by using a metal plate. Also, the area should be ventilated or is at least nearby an open window. So with this out of the way, let's get started with the review. Starting with the assembly process, which just took me 5 minutes. Nothing was missing in the box, so I had a smooth building experience. Essentially, you just need to plug in a few cables, fix the main parts with 4 screws, and you're done. Let's talk a bit about the specs of this device. You already know from the name it has a 15 watt laser. Now that is not the actual light output power, it's the electrical power consumption. The real light output is between 4 and 4.5 watts. The laser frequency is around 445 nanometers, so keep that in mind if you buy protective glasses like these ones, or something like this protection glass that I'm using for building an enclosure. The working area is about 160 by 150 millimeter large. The theoretical resolution is up to 20 lines per millimeter, far more than 300 dpi. My real world tests show that about 4 to 5 lines per millimeter is already enough to produce high quality results. It has a 32-bit microcontroller, so movements are smooth and fast. But it doesn't have an SD card slot, so you cannot run this independently from a computer. You always have to have a computer running nearby, connected through USB, which sends over the engraving commands. For Windows users, there's a free software called Laser GBRL that will control the laser machine. Mac users will have to use another software, for example Lightburn. That is super powerful. It's also available for Windows. It has a lot of features, but it also costs $40, so it's not free. However, there's a trial version, so you can check if it's worth the money. I definitely will have to look at it, but it is another topic for another video. You can download all the Laser GBRL software and the PDF manuals from the link that's in the Quick Start manual. Now I'd like to walk you through one end-to-end example of engraving the Crosslink logo to this piece of plywood. The first thing here in the Laser GBRL software is to load a picture or an outline of the thing that you want to engrave or cut into the material. And in my case, I only have this picture, so it needs to be converted into something that is engravable, and this device understands. And that's what the software is for. So we first have to decide whether this should be just a black and white. That means that anything that is not white in the picture is going to be black in the engraving. But if you want to have some kind of shades of gray, you have to use a conversion method that is called dithering. And that converts grayscales into dots that are more or less closer together, and that forms the intensity of the gray shade. In this case I'm going for dithering, so since my logo has 2 colors, the darker one is going to be black and the other one is hopefully going to be a little bit of a lighter gray. Next we have to decide what we actually want to do, if we want to cut or engrave, and what material we are using. There's a little database of common materials in the software, and you also can select whether you want to cut or engrave. Basically what happens, the laser head is moving around the surface that you are working with, and the longer it stays in a spot, the deeper the engraving will be. So faster speed means we're going to engrave most of the time, and slower speed and even doing multiple runs around the part means we're cutting through. And also the laser intensity itself can be controlled additionally to the speed, but you could also just use a higher speed instead of decreasing the laser intensity. The thing about these settings in the end will be that you will have to try things out yourself. Every material will be different and you probably have to build your own list of settings over time, what works for you and what not. So I'm using the wood settings to engrave this part. Also I have to set the dimensions for the engraving. In this case I want a 2x2 centimeter large logo because the plywood is quite small. And finally I'm confirming this. So now it's the right moment to put my protective goggles on again, and I connect the machine to power and connect the USB cable to the computer. Then I push the power button on the machine, which is the left one, for at least 2 seconds. It's going to home and now it's ready to connect to the computer. And in the software, I'm selecting the COM port and hit connect. So it should give you a signal that it's connected. Now let's move the laser head to the center using the arrow buttons here in the software. And then you can click the laser button, which will enable the laser but at the lowest energy, so it won't burn anything, and you can just adjust the focus. Of course, I'm still doing this with the protective goggles on. I'm putting the plywood part underneath the laser, and then I'm using the focus ring at the laser head end to make the laser dot as small as possible. Finally, bring the laser point to the position where the lowest left corner of the engraving area should be, and then hit the Set Origin button to save this. You can also check your sizing and orientation of the part by clicking the square button. That's going to run the laser around the area that is going to be used, and so it will show you if you have to realign the part or resize it. Ready to go? I'm clicking the Start button to start the engraving process. Looking at the result of this engraving, the logo looks nice and sharp. Maybe the laser power was set a bit too high, but this is something you can try out and adjust using test pieces and then going for the final run once you're sure. So this was the end-to-end engraving example, which hopefully shows that the process, the usage is really quite simple and straightforward, and it's also a lot of fun. Further on, I did a bunch of laser cutting tests, this time not in the studio because of the smell and smoke being generated. So let's have a look at those. Cutting the 3mm plywood worked more or less well. I had to make some tests to find the right settings first. In the first couple of runs, the laser didn't manage to cut through the plywood, and I was wondering why the material was sweating out so much amber and dirt. So I decided to dry it for a few hours in the kitchen oven to remove as much water as possible. And this improved the final result quite a lot. I got a lot less smoke being generated, and the laser finally cut through the material completely. It's still pretty dirty though. These plywood boards really seem to soak up the environment humidity like crazy, so they need to be dried every time before you can cut them. The final assembly of these chess figures shows that there is still a bit of play in the cuts, so adjusting the scale might be necessary for a tighter fit. And this may also have to do with the laser focusing and how much material is burned away. The second test, I wasn't sure if this would be a good idea, but I tried the foam board anyways, and you can see the result is pretty disgusting. A lot of burnt material, the corners are melted, and the laser barely cut through the material. Probably not the best material for cutting with lasers. The third test was with the hobby glass, and I had no idea if this would work, but you can see the laser isn't even doing anything with the material. So it just went through the plastic, leaving no harm. After doing some more research, I figured that it will probably require a CO2 laser to cut materials like acrylic, but that is a completely different category of devices, also in terms of price. Test number 4 was with a few sheets of normal copy paper. I cut a circular ornament, and it was really the first time I felt I was going to have a really beautiful result, and you can see this is really nice. So with a little bit of a thicker paper, this would make nice ornaments for the Christmas tree. In the meanwhile, I ordered some sheets of 2mm balsa wood, which I hoped would make the laser cutting a bit easier. And this time I took some phone stand model and tried different settings. After going way overboard with the intensity, I found that 2mm balsa already cuts through at 1000mm per minute at full power. So concluding, I can say I had a lot of fun with this machine so far. The results are really nice if you find the right settings for the material. The software is easy to use and I'm really curious about Lightburn for some more advanced designs. The build quality of the device is more than I expected for the price, and it's really flexible mainly because of the way how it is designed, so you can put it on any surface easily. And it's powerful enough for most use cases. Now, the bad things are mainly its limited working area. That's by design. There's also a larger version, the Ortur Laser Master 2, if you need more workspace. The other bummer is certainly the missing SD card slot. I wish it would have the option to run it without a computer. Besides that, I think it's a good choice for getting into this hobby. I'm happy to test more materials and scenarios, so don't forget to leave a comment what you would like to see happening. I'm open for crazy stuff, just send me your ideas. That's it for today. See you next time. Bye bye.